Hi, I'm Pattu from freefincal. I was asked this interesting question by a viewer: how to build wealth across generations. Now, this is a topic that's quite close to my heart, not because I desire to build wealth across generations, but because I have seen wealth getting eroded across generations in my family. And one of my goals when I started getting serious about money management was to ensure that does not happen. So what does building wealth across generations mean? Typically, we tend to think of some kind of a family business or a family enterprise where you have a founder, and then the sons take over, then their sons, their children take over, and so on and so on, and it's a successful business. And the children think of new ideas, they branch out into new avenues. Some of them work, some of them don't, but generally the wealth moves in the right direction, and so on. That's the traditional idea that sets in our mind. But I think that may not always work, because we can never force our children to do what we want. Assuming we are not salaried and have an enterprise, we cannot force our children to follow in our footsteps. So that may not always be applicable. If it does, if they do follow in our footsteps and take up our enterprise, and that's great, then wealth can build in principle across generations. But so how does it work for salaried people? Now, I think the simple thing that we need to ensure is that our children are better qualified in terms of degrees or skills or both, whatever it is, and are able to be in a position to earn more than what we did when we were that age. If that is the first requirement, then we must also be able to manage our money well and build an adequate corpus so that we are not dependent on them when we become old and are retired. If we can ensure these two conditions to prevail across generations, that is the father or that is the parents having enough wealth and financially independent of the children, and the children earning more than their parents. If we can ensure these two conditions across generations, I think wealth will comfortably build. Of course, wealth, I mean net worth. Of course, wealth has got other meanings like health, etc. But let's not get into that here. Now, what did I mean by wealth eroding across generations in my family? For example, my great grandfather bought a house. It's a big bungalow in one of the main roads of Chennai. For those who are in Chennai or know of Chennai, this is in Mylapore, the Edward Elliott's Road. Then it became the Radhakrishnan Salai. So that was the house I lived in until 1988. And the reason we had to sell that house was because my grandfather was not as wealthy or did not have as much net worth as my great grandfather, and none of his sons had as much wealth, or they were not earning as much. If you adjust for inflation and lifestyle and so on, they were not earning as much. And because of that, we had to sell that house and go elsewhere, live in flats and so on. And it took us generations to get into a position of reasonable net worth, at least 2 generations to get into a position of reasonable net worth, to go from middle class to upper middle class and beyond that. So I would say my family was above middle class, or at least upper middle class in the 40s and 50s, and then it started eroding. So they've slipped down the social station, and then it took us another couple of generations to build it back up, and we're still probably, I mean, not all of us are, I would say, above the upper middle class level. So that's how the wealth erodes. The wealth erodes because one, the parents are not financially independent, and the two children are not qualified or educated enough to earn more. This is, I mean, okay, following passion, following what they want, all that is fine, but this is the simple truth. If you if you earn less than your what your parents did, or if your ability is lower, ability to earn is lower than your parents, and if you adjust it for inflation, etc., then wealth will definitely not build across generations, and you will slip down the social station. So it's a very interesting question. It's very close to my heart.